Go? We're good. So we're live. Are you ready?
We'll see. We'll see, Joe.
We're going to introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm Joe Marushak. I'm here to interview.
I'm Ross Kanaga, and I'm here to be interviewed.
Yes. What's your title?
Oh, I'm the Financial Innovation Manager at DevNW's, formerly Nedco.
So this is going to be slightly different than other founder firesides we've done, because usually we bring a founder in here to talk about their company. This one's interesting because now we're moving beyond just talking to founders, and we're talking about the support systems for founders in Lane County. So this is what we call ecosystem development.
Okay.
So you're clearly in ecosystem development, and ecosystem development's a strange animal because it's not just one thing. It's all the different little things that help support people that are starting businesses or actually just living in our community.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you riff on that for a little bit and just talk about how you touch the ecosystem and what you're trying to do.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually want to say two things. One, I can talk about how DevNW's, our organization, touches the ecosystem, but also just, as being a nonprofit practitioner, there are elements of entrepreneurship that may not hold the same risks that an entrepreneur has, but some interesting things as well. So, DevNW's, some of you may have heard of Nedco, Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation. Just in the last, literally 2 months ago, we changed our name because we combined with another organization out of Corvallis. And our mission is to help develop thriving communities, build financial well-being. So helping individuals, families, communities, building financial well-being. And of course, starting a business, being an entrepreneur, a lot of people see that as a route to financial well-being. And so we kind of definitely interact in that space, sometimes helping directly, and then also sometimes acting kind of a little bit upstream from an entrepreneur as well. So
what do you mean by that, upstream?
Well, so what are the ingredients that you need in place if you're an entrepreneur? Well, the famous ones are you need an idea, you need execution. But if you look at some of the data, you need other things as well. You need a community. So like there are wonderful organizations here in Lane County that support entrepreneurs getting started. But then there's also a lot of research that you need capital. And so if and there's a lot of entrepreneurs who have started a business because they had some equity in a home, or they had some savings, or they sometimes they had some family that were able to help them get started. And so when you kind of take a step back and you say, what do you need in order to start a business? We do a lot of work in that space. So one thing that we talk a lot about is global cash flow, is that if you're going to start a business, obviously your business needs to cash flow, and you need to be mindful of that cash flow. But for a small micro enterprise, it's really important. A lot of times money drifts out into your actual personal finances as well. So our kind of lens is say, build your financial house. Start with the basics. Start with your financial house, and then build to a small business.
I want you to delve into that a little bit, because a lot of, like when I was working at the Rain Accelerator, we work with businesses.
Yes.
And we recognize that they're people. But you guys very intentionally, with a lot of very directed programs, actually look at the entirety of the individual. Like you go beyond just their business. So talk about some of those programs, what they do, how they came about, how they're structured, and sort of outcomes that you've seen that have been positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just start with an outcome.
Okay.
Is people leave our programming with an incredible propensity to save. And the ability to save has rippling effects in so many different areas of life. Obviously, for somebody who's starting a business, that's really powerful. I remember.
What program?
Well, our financial well-being program.
Okay.
DevNW's has 4 lines of business. One is financial well-being. Other is affordable homes. So we actually build affordable home ownership opportunities. The other is access to funds. So some of you may have heard of Community Lending Works. It's a community development financial institution that kind of bridges the gap in capital, tries to put capital in the space that otherwise maybe capital wouldn't go. And then the final one is thriving communities, and that's that's actually, we run that programming a little bit more in our other office in Corvallis, but that's like wraparound community health workers supporting some of the properties that we have. So that's a little bit has a little bit more of a social work flavor to it. But in the financial well-being programming, our crux is basically building your financial future, and it starts with financial education and financial one-on-one coaching. And so people take it in a lot of different directions. Small business, some people are working on tackling student loans. Some people want to get started investing for the first time and they don't know how to get started, so we have classes about that. We have a lot of people know NEDCO for supporting first-time home buyers, and so we have different programs, classes. We have HUD-approved financial counselors that work with first-time home buyers. And we just do a lot of programming around, if you're trying to build your financial future, what would that be? So we've got side hustle workshops, we've got life planning workshops, we've got Social Security planning workshops, like I said, investing, financial independence. We meet people at different kind of levels in the income spectrum. So a lot of the work we do are for middle income folks, kind of thriving, striving to get to a place of thriving. But we work some with people who are extremely low income, as well as we actually have a workplace program where we actually bring financial education into different workplaces. So like we actually had one in an accounting firm they wanted, and so that one was incredibly very advanced. And then some other times we'll have it at like a company that has a lot of manufacturing base, and so maybe that we're focusing more on cash flow management or tackling debt. It just depends. So that's kind of the foundation from which we come from, and then from there it is all about asset building and starting a business. If you look in America, what are the ways to build assets? Like, there's not that many. I mean, it would be great if you could, if you had a rich sugar daddy, that would be great. But most people don't have that. So you're starting a business, you're investing in your future through compound interest. You are, investment properties. You're buying a home. It's not rocket science. And so how do you build a foundation so that you can kind of access these different levers of asset building?
Yep. And my experience with talking to people that have been through your programs is that the way they interact with your programs isn't necessarily a one and done. Mm-hmm. They come in and they seem to be engaged with you for quite some time, oftentimes going through several of your programs and accessing several of the different things that you offer.
Yeah.
So talk about that interaction and how those people feel as they come in, possibly just a single individual, as you expose them to the community and all the services you have, and how they start networking and interacting and how you shepherd that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple tools that a lot of people have heard of that I would consider carrots to people working with us. One is called the Individual Development Account Program, and it's a 3-to-1 matching grant where you can save for different asset goals. And so a lot of people come in and are like, okay, I'm going to do that. But Joe, I'm like, when I hear that, it just makes my heart flutter, because one of the things that's important to us is that you don't, like sometimes we joke, if high schools all had financial education, maybe that would be a beautiful thing when we could write ourselves out of business. We would absolutely love that. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of people who don't know what you don't know, and taking a step back and kind of building the mechanics around your financial house. How do you build the plumbing to make sure that actually things are happening in the right way? People don't realize, but there's a ton of value in that. And so I think people get hooked into that, and there's a behavioral component. It's like, hey, once I'm practicing these skills, I want to explore other ways that I can basically expand my horizon. So I mentioned something like we have a financial independence class or an investment property class. A lot of people are thinking, well, I'm looking to buy a home. I don't think I want to invest in properties, but maybe I want to take this because I want to be exposed to how does this asset work, and how is it building assets for millions of Americans. And so, or side hustles. This is a relatively new. It's not a new phenomenon. We've had the gig economy for some time, but there's more stories about like business models for actually how to build a side hustle. So, like, I don't know that I'm going to build a side hustle, but I'm curious. I want to explore what would that look like. I'm passionate about something. What would it take to build that idea out on the side?
Yeah, and part of this is like, how many do you want to go on this?
Yeah.
Because this whole idea of building community wealth.
Mm-hmm.
We can build community wealth, and yes, there's rich investors here that are making more money.
Sure.
But how can we, and what part are you playing in sort of getting this idea of community wealth building out to the rank and file?
Yeah.
Where everyone feels that, it feels like they're part of growing that wealth, the community wealth that's in our town, in our location.
Yes.
So go really broad with that one. Talk about the impact of just everyone having a little bit more wealth, and how powerful that can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just step back and say, I work for a community development corporation. It's a nonprofit, but it's sanctioned as a CDC, and these organizations are all over the country. And we're actually the first CDC in the state of Oregon. And some of the stuff that you're talking about is what CDCs are interested in, is how can an organization and collective individuals have an outside effect on building community wealth, building community resources. And so it goes everything from, like, I'm just thinking in NEDCO's history, like back in the late 70s, early 80s, we were really focused on the Whitaker neighborhood, and we saw that there were actually some food deserts. There was the Red Barn, that was a NEDCO project, but then there wasn't an affordable way to access kind of more cheaper foods. And so NEDCO played a very instrumental role in bringing in the Red Apple grocery store. And these are like community. You don't think of a grocery store, but it is an absolute community asset. And then once you start getting some anchor tenants, you get Sweet Life, you get the Even Sam Bonds, then you get some energy, and then all of a sudden, we love our breweries to death, but they are as a result of a lot of energy that they stand on their predecessors. And there's a lot of energy that made that environment rich for that to be in a very attractive place. And we're seeing that happen in Springfield as well. Is back in 2013 we started the Sprout Regional Food Hub, which is now the Public House. And there was a coordinated effort. The city of Springfield is doing fantastic jobs to revitalize that downtown core. But our lens on starting that project was, on one end, is we want to create opportunities for the individual. So here's a place to produce food. Here's a market to sell your goods. Here's an office space at an affordable level to start your business. But then, kind of on the community level, is what does actually having a marketplace do that's open in the evenings? Like, what do we see local businesses staying open later? Do we see a ripple effect kind of in that downtown corridor? So we do work on kind of the high level advocacy stuff, all the way down to the community level stuff, all the way down to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, which is the individual. Is that the individual plays so much of a role in this in economic development as well. We know that there's that famous article from the Atlantic a couple years ago that 47% of people, if they had a $400 expense, they couldn't cover it. Yeah. They couldn't cover it. And so just starting with emergency savings, and sometimes even just starting with $25, setting $25 aside so that at the end of the month, you're not going to have a non-sufficient fund fee or an overdraft from your bank. Start somewhere. That has a ripple effect on the community as well. Of course, we do a lot of work on home ownership. There's tons of research talking about having, home ownership and community self-governance when there are more home ownership opportunities. So there's a lot of different lens that the community wealth is built.
Now I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a lot And you have a particularly interesting challenge is that you're not just saying here's a pathway to walk down, and at the end there's something, owning a house, owning a business.
Yeah.
Nor are you just saying, here's a result, here's a place that needs to be developed downtown, figure it out.
Yes.
You're playing both sides of the coin. You're creating a pathway, and at the end of the pathway, you're actually giving them a very real opportunity that's right in front of them.
Yeah.
Visible and tangible.
Absolutely.
Now, this requires a sort of balancing act. Too much on this, not enough pathway into it, and so there's always this need to sort of balance out how the throughput and giving people a place to land, so you're not giving them a false promise.
Yes.
So talk about that balancing act and how you guys navigate that, and sort of throw out some challenges that are very, very real.
Yeah.
And over this, I mean, particularly over, say, the last 8 years in Eugene, Springfield, things have changed a lot.
Sure, yeah.
Which means that balancing has probably had to readjust. Just you get to the next level of growth, and it opens up a whole new world of opportunities that you have to then contend with.
Yes.
So talk about how you guys are dealing with that.
Yeah.
And how you're looking at and we've gotten Springfield's needed to be revitalized.
Sure. Yeah.
It has been revitalized.
Yes.
Now it's going to like a phase 2.
Yes.
So how are you thinking about that phase 2?
I'll start with that piece, and I want to be careful not to speak out of turn here, but we actually the onus is the city of Springfield is doing a ton. We, in terms of local economic development in downtown Springfield, we're doing relatively little. Like if you think of some of the core businesses, we supported Planktown getting started through Community Lending Works. The Washburn Cafe, that new thing is the new Washburn has really become kind of a hub for meeting and kind of ideas and stuff. But we used to have what was called our Main Street program, where we would actually coordinate with downtown businesses. And this is actually, there's a program called Main Street USA there's a specific kind of way that these Main Street programs are run. But in the last several years, we're out. So we still are in downtown Springfield, but the energy is self-propelling at this point.
I know you're playing elsewhere.
We're playing elsewhere. So one area that we're really focused on right now is, now that we're a merged organization, is South Corvallis. We're also doing a lot of home ownership affordability is a big, housing affordability is a big crux issue in the state right now. No surprise to anyone. And
really bad in Eugene, Springfield.
And incredibly bad all along the Willamette corridor, but definitely Eugene, Springfield. But I mean, even Corvallis is horrible. Even towns that Albany, it's even tough in just kind of the whole corridor. And so one thing we're doing, and again, it's a drop in the bucket. You need lots of community. St. Vincent de Paul is doing lots of cool stuff, Homes for Good, but we're building community land trust developments, and this is a home ownership opportunity. Think of it similar to kind of a condo, where in order to make it affordable, the nonprofit retains ownership of the land, and the homeowner owns the home. And so the upside is that here somebody can actually get into a new constructed house for an affordable rate. We're targeting 80% area median income. So we have a project going in Cottage Grove and Florence, and we're just getting one going to start fairly soon in the Bethel neighborhood as well. And what's cool about is here's a way to buy a home and you're a middle income household, and you've got a new housing construction. You couldn't find that on with market pricing. It would be like in the 400, 350 at least, probably 400 plus. And so, but the one trade-off I should say is that if you ever sell it, there is shared appreciation. So you have a little bit less upside on the appreciation, and you have to sell it to somebody at an affordable price. So the pricing growth will only grow based off of income. So really not much at all, because we know wages are fairly stagnant, not based on market pricing. But somebody's able to basically build equity as they're paying down the loan.
So it's like rent with equity.
It's like
savings account kind of?
Similar. I mean, yeah, you're building equity. You're building equity and very little appreciation. That's a good way to put it.
So it ends up being a savings account, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, you can sometimes say buying a home is an enforced savings account. Like if you run the numbers, sometimes it makes more sense to invest that money in the market and rent. But from a behavioral economics perspective, are you actually going to invest that amount?
Or are you going to go on vacation?
Or you're going to go on vacation, so that's where it's, so a mortgage is enforced savings for sure, yeah. So I'm trying to come back to your question.
Which was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, we're going all over the place.
Yeah.
So a lot of these questions are these meta questions that I'm asking. They really have to do with how getting someone to invest in themselves,
yes,
to invest in the community, to start thinking about ownership and entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Start thinking like an owner of something.
Yes.
As opposed to thinking about just having a job.
Yes.
And feeling as if the world is happening to them.
Yes.
I think there's a change that happens when people shift from feeling that the world's happening to them until they feel like they're happening to the world. And how all the programs you do sort of all fit into that vein of assisting people to be entrepreneur in their own way. But really it's how do they own their lives instead of their lives owning them?
Yeah. No, that's very true. We've done some work in the high school where we're actually in local high schools where we're doing some entrepreneurship education. But really, the focus is exactly what you're talking about, Joe. Is that some people are like, well, I don't know that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. We say, well, take a step back, using the framework on how entrepreneurs think. That will serve you well in your life. A propensity to take risks. So, a propensity to challenge assumptions, a propensity to actually solve problems, not just show up, clock in and clock out. But if you can solve problems for your boss, my goodness, that might create some interesting opportunities for you. So, so I think there's a workforce development component of entrepreneurship skills that. Obviously, we want people to start businesses, but even if they don't start a business...
Well, even if part of this whole thing is what are you doing when you start a business?
Yeah.
You're investing in yourself.
Yeah.
So you can invest in yourself starting a business, obviously.
Yeah.
But you can invest in yourself in so many ways. In education, but as you said, taking risks, just going forward and doing anything.
Yes.
Where you are absorbing the cost of that to better yourself with the expectation of not an immediate return.
Yeah.
A down the road return. And that behavioral cycle.
Yes.
How early can we introduce that behavioral cycle into people where they see that investments usually pay off huge dividends down the road.
Yes.
And there's not an immediate return. And that sort of behavior in our community, how much stronger will it make our communities? How much more community wealth will there be?
Yeah.
So.
And we have to acknowledge, the inequities of our economic system, and in that still appreciate what you just said is that there are ways to build assets at all different levels of the income spectrum, and sometimes the skill is to get started. It can be very, very simple, but the behavior and the education associated with it may be one of the greatest skills of that journey.
I'm looking at my watch and we're out of time, so I'm going to ask you a personal question.
Okay.
You're a smart guy.
Thank you.
Why do you do this? And this is the question. You're obviously passionate about this.
Yeah.
You're talking about this and you're getting very, very excited.
Yeah.
Now, you could move to New York and become a banker.
Yeah.
And, probably buy a big house and a Porsche.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you're here in Lane County doing this work.
Yeah.
So the question is, why did you choose this instead of that?
Sure.
And
vocation. It's an interesting question. I was an economics major, and I think one thing that I always get excited on economics is what is the multiplier effect that you can have, and I think that entrepreneurs can have incredible multiplier effects on their local economy, on creating job creation, all sorts of things. But I also think that what I've stumbled into, I'm able to do that. So I kind of oversee, I think last year we had 136 different education events. That's a lot of different things.
A lot.
And with each one, there's an undercurrent, and that is that what is this class going to do that's actionable? What is it that it can do that can tie into a goal that you're working on? And so that's what keeps me going. I mean, honestly, like seeing somebody just like seeing like we have a youth course, seeing a youth open up a Roth IRA and just set aside like $5, which you can now open a Roth IRA with $5 now in like a low fee index fund, and you couldn't have done that 15 years ago. That like to know what that projects to and what the multiplier effect that may have on this person's life, that's powerful. To see somebody in like our business course like have such a powerful idea, but not really grapple with the idea that you actually have to get out there and start selling, and you have to be very comfortable about communicating your idea, and you have to do it over and over and over again so that it just rolls off the tongue, and to see them grapple, and we do an activity, we call it elevator pitch dating, and they just over and over again, they're just like, I don't want to do it at first, but then they get more comfortable. It's those sort of things that I know it's kind of squishy, but it's one life to live, and right now it definitely I get energized seeing the clients that we work with building towards things. One other story: there was a gentleman starting a business. He took our personal finance class. He's making about $35K a year, and he like I talked to him about 6 months later, and he said, Ross, I have figured out how to set aside $1,000 a month away, making $35K. Now he didn't have any kids, so let's tell the full story there. But he realized after taking our small business class that he's like, I know that I'm gonna I need some runway here, and it's not easy. Like I think I have a good idea, but I need to develop some runway myself, and so I'm going to do that through my current job. And I have this idea, but I'm gonna let it sit for 6 months to a year, so I can just have a little bit of runway. And those sort of things, they totally jazz me. So
that's awesome. I'm just gonna say, I respect that.
Yeah.
It's like it's awesome when people make an intentional choice, when they say, well, I can go down the path to riches, or I could choose a path toward a different sort of wealth.
Yeah.
A different sort of outcome that is ultimately much more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of respect that you've made the intentional choice to serve a community and not just fill up your own bank account.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But I also want to say, just this is kind of to the note of our conversation around asset building, is that it's possible to build assets in conjunction with a job that you want to do. And so that job may be being an entrepreneur. It may be doing something else, but still building assets as well. And so I think that's an interesting question that people can wrestle with, and hopefully our programming helps with. But I want to say, you said, I do want to say that for DevNW's to work, we do rely so heavily on partners, because in many ways, like you articulated, we are a launch pad for a lot of people. But once you get us down a path to a certain distance, you need
to let them go.
You need to let them go, but you also need a different level of expertise. And I see Eugene Regional Accelerator as like, okay, what if you're not trying to just start a sustainable business for yourself, but you're looking to scale, you're looking to be trade sector, you're looking to get out of the state. Like that's sure, community lending works. We may have some capital for a portion of that, but some of the technical assistance is it's like there's wonderful other partners, and find some wonderful mentors, but at least now there's the opportunity, and there's a pathway.
And there's a pathway, a place for people to go, and not just let them go for nothing.
Yeah.
And we're over time, so man, thank you. That was awesome.
Oh,
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Hopefully it was enjoyable and informative.
I got one. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Just as a pitch to the people out there, you're watching this. If you made it 25 minutes, like, good for you. Like, go out and be a mentor for somebody. There are so many early stage entrepreneurs that have an idea that that really just need somebody to talk it through with. And obviously, there's great resources in Eugene. But if you have an expertise around something, like, go find somebody who's trying to start something around that, and you'll have a fun experience too.
If you don't know where to volunteer, talk to us and we'll
talk
hook
to
you
this
up.
guy. This
Yep.
guy will hook you up for sure.
Right, man.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you very
Joe.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good one.